Big Butt Dinkleface. A tale of bullying, bravery, and weaponized flatulence. There once was a lonely boy, caring and kind, who tried very hard for a friend he might find, but the bullies just laughed, calling him a disgrace. He was known at his school as Big Butt Dinkleface. A nice boy was he, always wanting to play, but the other kids constantly sent him away. For Big Butt Dinkleface was different than most. He had a butt twice as big as a Sunday pot roast. But it wasn't just big, it was loud and explosive. His farts could peel paint like an acid corrosive. And the smell, oh the smell, was just terribly toxic. Anybody who sniffed it would beg him to stop it. And so it went that day after day, poor Dinkleface had no way he could play. At recess he sat all alone in a tree, while the others played games, happy as could be. Then one day something terrible happened at school. 3 robbers burst in and said, "Give us your jewels." All the kids on the playground jumped up, ran away. Those trapped in the school had no choice but to stay. Dinkleface watched from his perch in the tree. Then he took a deep breath and said, "I'll set them free." Calling on all of the courage he could muster, he marched to the building, perhaps like old Custer. He burst in the school, going through the front door, and staring at the robbers he shouted, "No more!" He turned around, aiming his butt at their heads. His eyes began straining. His face grew quite red. For a moment the robbers didn't know what to do. Then they laughed and they said, "Now we'll rob you, boy, too." At the very same moment they pulled out their guns, Dinkleface bombed them, 5 megatons. The sound shook the walls and shattered the windows. The robbers were dazed by the battering windflow. But then, when the shockwave had settled at last, the robbers were hit with the smell of the gas. The smell was quite wretched and perfectly gross. It made each of them puke just a bit in the throat. The stench was so nasty and foul to smell, and so powerful that it rang alarm bells. The smell was so awful it's hard to describe, but in the name of science, let's give it a try. It was something like rotting eggs left in the sun, or maybe a pond that's been drained, leaving scum. That's not quite right, no. It was more like manure, a pile from 10,000 cows, perhaps more. Or maybe it was more like the smell of dead fish that were left out too long and have started to squish. The smell of a garbage truck might be a match, if it's hot out and flies are all swarming the trash. Perhaps, though, the smell could best be described as a smell so rancid that vile vultures cried. However you describe it, the effect was the same. The robbers were going quite out of their brains. Their faces all turned different colours of green as they stumbled round seeking air that was clean. When they finally found their way to the outside, they had tears in their eyes that made them go blind. In their rush to get out, they smacked into a tree, and they fell to the ground in a pile, all 3. The robbers were left feeling most unwell, as they were loaded up and taken to a holding cell. Then all the kids ran to Big Butt Dinkleface, and they said, "Hey, that butt of yours actually is great." They hoisted him up to ride on their shoulders, with the weight of his rear pushing down like big boulders. They cheered and they shouted and formed a parade. "Dinkleface saved the day, hooray!" The principal came out and thanked him sincerely for being so brave to risk death quite nearly. So although his butt was stunningly vast, and loud and disgusting when he let out a blast, Dinkleface gained many friends on that day, and from then on the kids always asked him to play. But now when they call him to join in their games, they no longer use that mean-spirited name. Never again was he Big Butt Dinkleface. Now he's known simply as Little Bobby Chase.